President Cyril Ramaphosa is one of the 14 World League leaders targeted by spyware company, the NSO Group. That's according to Amnesty International in a project involving 80 journalists from 10 countries titled the Pegasus Project. It's believed that the targeted heads of states are at risk of being monitored and their personal data being captured and used against them. Let's discuss this with the Executive Director at Amnesty International South Africa, Shenilla, Mohamed. Shenilla, thank you so much for making time. So based on this data, President Cyril Ramaphosa's name appearing to have been selected by Rwanda in 2019 as a person of interest. These reports are quite worrying.
Oh, good afternoon, Clement, and good afternoon to your viewers. Yes, I mean, it's an unprecedented situation where, we find ourselves, with heads of state who are being surveyed by a company that claims time and time again that the surveillance equipment, which is called Pegasus, is used only for, dealing with criminals or tracking down criminals. And we've seen, that activists and journalists are often surveyed. But this is the first time, it's really quite worrying. And certainly heads of state should be worried that the names of at least 14 have emerged. And that's just from the sample that we've looked at. We don't know how widespread this is.
And Rwanda seems to deny that they hacked the president or selected him as a person of interest. But what we know is how journalists and activists have often been targets of such hacks. But now even the highest levels of power cannot escape this.
Well, Rwanda is one of the countries that we looked at, and what we found in Rwanda was that one, they are clients of this, the spyware, and two, that at least 3,500 journalists and activists are being surveyed. So, and again, if you look at one of our partner organizations, The Guardian, who reported today that President Ramaphosa's phone became infected on a visit to Rwanda in 2019. So, it's very difficult for them to deny this, because I think, as Amnesty Tech, we have used really very cutting-edge technology in order to be able to detect the software. Now, unfortunately, we don't have all the president's phones, so we couldn't do that on them, but their numbers have come up as numbers that have been requested by certain clients of the NSO Group. And Rwanda was the country that was identified as the one who requested, surveillance on President Ramaphosa. So, that in itself is really worrying. And, it's important to note, Clement, that this software is very hard to detect. And, it's secretly installed on a victim's phone, and it allows the attacker complete access to your entire life, whether it is your messages, all your devices, emails, media, camera, contacts, it records your voice, etc. So it is literally walking into a person's life. Now imagine what can be done with information that is extracted from the lives of heads of state.
Sure. What do you make of the defense from NSO Group? Because they're saying, well, the spyware is only used to fight crime.
Well, to be honest, our project, which we're doing jointly with Forbidden Stories, which is an NGO based in Paris, proves otherwise. And, they have consistently said this. And I think one of our biggest challenges is that, there is damning, that they have never taken our calls, even in the past, seriously. They keep on denying that their software is being used. And now we have the evidence. And these damning revelations really underscore the need for states to ensure that there is strong regulation in place to rein in these wild west type of surveillance industries like NSO, because they are just operating without any sort of regulation, and that is what is dangerous. And in answer to your question about what do we say about their denials, well, we are saying that we have evidence to the contrary, and they can no longer hide behind that claim that it's only used to fight crimes, because it's also the spyware of choice for those wanting to snoop on foreign governments. And again, our project has proven that.
Yeah, and maybe we do need regulations to rein in the surveillance industry. But what else can various governments do to put pressure, especially on surveillance equipment that is being transferred between countries, especially in countries that have a track record of putting opponents under unlawful surveillance. I mean, I'm getting shivers hearing you talk about how advanced this technology is. It has, it can detect, you said it has access to your entire life. It detects everything. It's quite dangerous if it lands on the wrong hands.
Absolutely, Clement. And what we are calling for is an immediate, urgent moratorium on the sale, the transfer, on the use, the export of all surveillance technology until, and particularly Pegasus, until there is a sort of a regulatory system in place that is stringent and that ensures that rights are not being violated. And that's the first thing that governments must do. There must be a global call for this. South Africa can already put a moratorium on it. I mean, if you're asking what can the state do, they can already do that. The second thing is that Israel has to be brought, to order. I mean, the governments have to insist that Israel, really refuses to allow licenses, for the Pegasus software to countries that have this record of violating, human rights and surveying, journalists, etc., or repression. And then thirdly, I mean, it's really, really important that states take this very seriously and ensure that their own security networks are aware of this software, and they find ways to ensure that there's no trace of it. I mean, if the Amnesty technical team was able to find traces of it, then why can't governments? And I think one of the most frightening things about this is that our research showed that giant techs like Apple, for example, who are very proud of their safety and security records, etc. This software broke into that. The most vulnerable phones, according to our research, are the Apple phones. So the Apple 10, 11, and 12 are the most vulnerable phones. And if somebody like Apple, who puts so much resources into securing their technology, if they can be broken into, then what of you and me, and what of others? So I mean, I think it's the responsibility of the state to ensure that all citizens are safe and that this technology is not being abused, because it goes against our constitution, it goes against international law, and really it's in violation of our basic human rights. So in the same way that the president has been violated, he should ensure that no citizen or no person in this country should be violated in the same way.